Okay. Hello. Good evening, I guess, for me. I've I feel a little funny trying to find a place to start with this. Today, uh, today I had originally hoped to talk about um, some details around the um, the nature of death. So, because there's some things that I left off from yesterday that I realized form a complete arc that I wanted to bring forward, but um, instead I got kind of knocked on my butt um, by an emotional wave. It's clearly just really triggered by something, um, and like it pulled up a whole bunch of feelings that have been very entangled, having to do with mostly having to do with relating to romantic partners throughout my life. There's just this big knotted mess that all came up, um, and um, I find that most of the triggers, including the old triggers, like the whole activation of this is terrible and you're bad, and like a lot of that um, over the last several weeks has felt like I've had enormous amounts of space around it. Like I can be immensely triggered, lots of room, and I'll still have lots of room for all of that energy. I can be really upset or really sad, and it's just a matter of system is overwhelmed. There's a little bit of something like distance. A tremendous amount of that is coming from having had a whole bunch of experiences of, and the language for this is terrible. I was just talking with a friend, Malcolm Ocean, about how language needs an overhaul for this. I don't think it has to be difficult, but right now it is. I'm sort of forced to say things incorrectly um, because we don't have another way of articulating this yet. But uh, I have had a whole lot of experiences of leaving time and then coming back, whatever that means, and then. um, and having had that experience many times, uh, I have a really clear experience of contrast. And the contrast is between the world of contrast and the world of not contrast, or we'll leave it with that. That's simple enough. Um, it's true enough, I should say. It's true enough to convey the meaning here. And so, because of that, I'll have this. I'll now have this kind of experience of I'll look around and notice how I'm judging everything of like, am I messing up here? And this is annoying. And there'll be a way where that buzz has a kind of I want to see something almost like a cuteness. Like, look at that experience I'm having. How fascinating. What a marvelous illusion. And so that becomes very real and vivid to me, this sense of almost like this isn't here. None of the experience is here. Um, but today, that really wasn't accessible. It was just amazing to watch. But it was amazing to watch in a way that was like, I, I can't get out of this. I'm really stuck. I notice these stories. I'm just wrapped up in this. Um, I'm because of how public this is, I don't particularly want to go into all of the details about it. Um, I'll just highlight that there's a pattern that I've tended to allow, encourage in how I interact with romantic partners. It's been true throughout my life, and I encountered an experiential reflection of this pattern is still here, and I had thought I had demolished it. Um, and there was a kind of freak out because there's an experience of projecting this problem onto my partner. Um, and even cognitively knowing, oh, I am projecting, doesn't stop the energy from welling up. the mostly anger, mostly a whole lot of anger and feeling victimized, feeling really victimized. Um, and I can identify that, but it doesn't do anything about the fact that that's where my mind keeps going. Like, I'm being victimized because she did this and she's not considering me this way. And I'm getting into this, okay, and maybe I can take a breath. Okay, and where can I honor the truth in what is hurting without rolling into something emotionally immature? Well, I could tell her what a bitch she's being in this. It's like, there just didn't seem to be any movement, any way to move. Usually, over the last couple of weeks, as much as that can have a usually, I've found that when I feel trapped, when I'm caught in the illusion of being trapped by my own patterns, um, usually the way out amounts to ceasing to believe my mind. Like, my mind is often a very powerful navigational force, um, and but sometimes it just gets caught in loops. It's part of the machine, and I can just step outside and go, "You don't make sense. I'm not going to use you." Instead, I'm just going to pay attention to my feelings or the sensations, and I'm going to move the energy fairly directly. When I'm saying mind here, I just had a discussion with Malcolm about this earlier today. Um, if you just think of, it's the thing that creates thoughts and likes to present models, that's pretty close. You can just sort of run with that. So, but in this case, there's just no movement. I couldn't, like, I'd try to step outside the mind, but then I would feel a visceral sense of violation from trying to do that. And I would get very clear thoughts about why, and the thoughts would ring with truth, which is, no, that is the only way left to hold on to something I actually care about, an actual boundary, something I'm actually protecting. There's something here that matters. And there's that kind of energy to it. There's something here that matters. And I go, okay. And it doesn't feel so much like it's threatening me. It's just, oh, all of this charge is protecting something. But I can't navigate around it and like honor the thing that needs protecting, honor the hurt feeling or the fear, deal with the situation. I couldn't even imagine a way of clearing things with my partner that didn't get soaked in some kind of accusatory, victimized orientation because of the way that this energy would move in me. Um, uh, when I say that, I'm thinking along the lines of how somebody can really calm down and look at their partner and say, look, I want to work together on sorting this out. I just need to understand why you're being a bitch. It's like, oh, oops. Like, it's rarely that, well, I mean, often it can be that blatant, but when someone is really trying to cooperate, they can successfully sort of suppress all of the signals that they can be conscious of sending out a signal of hostility and of being victimized, of like, you did this to me, so now you have to justify, grr, like that kind of energy. But what they're in effect doing, because it's in post-production, it's at the last step of the communication where all these adjustments get made. Um, and I am generalizing in this case, but I think this is pretty generally true. This is what I see. It's definitely what I live. But I'm seeing a pattern outside in the world, and then I'm reflecting it in me. And the pattern I see in the world is that because of this post-production, there's the energy that causes the inclination towards being victimized is still there, and it still informs how they speak, when they speak, why they speak, what they think is important to say, how their mind is operating. Like, all of this stuff is still guided by this underlying victimized energy. So part of the challenge for me was a kind of loop that I was getting into around um, feeling some tension about the fact that one of the components of the frustration, not a main one, but one of them, is the way in which I need to not have any of these kinds of energies in order for my partner to be able to receive where I'm coming from. Um, and so communication gets shut down anytime there's a charge. And the way that my mind, and I'm still I'm still working on clearing out some of these chunks. I'm saying this with more generality than is even true just between me and my partner. Um, but that loopiness would just feed right back into, this is unfair. Wait, I don't want to think that. I don't want to focus on that part. Whether it's fair or not isn't the thing. And then this surge of energy. One of the telltale signs for me that I was missing the boat is that I couldn't get in touch with anything other than anger. I could, almost like doing echolocation, I could feel in my body hints of hurt, like pain, like heart pain, hints of fear. But then the anger would burst up and become even louder. And so in internal family systems, one way of describing this is, oh, I'm dealing with a protector, some kind of part of me that is trying to protect a hurt part. And the protector insists on not letting me have access to these other parts. It is so confusing that this can exist. It just seems like seeing reality should be enough, but apparently it's not. So normally my mind provided me with this information quite readily of, oh, like standing in the shower or sitting and meditating. I spent a number of hours trying to digest this stuff of, okay, if I'm running into a problem with a protector, then that means I need to negotiate with the protector first. And so I would try to work with that, going, protector, what do you need? And just the energetic sense was this kind of pushback against even the effort to seek that out. Going, okay, am I being insincere in my orientation to meeting the protector wherever it's at? Like, well, if I am, it's coming from a place that's beneath where the protector is guarding, so I don't know what to do about that. Um, and I could feel into how I was playing this game the way I have always played it. Not always, I've learned more tools, but like over the last 10-ish years, it's the same kind of game of, okay, I'm feeling all these feelings and I'm trying to sort it out. And how do I sort it out? I'm doing these things, I'm beating myself up. Oh, well, I mean, I beat myself up. And it was like moving through all these tactics in this mental, emotional space. And sometimes even just going, okay, let me just breathe into the body, breathe, breathe. And then I could feel how that was suppressing the feelings rather than digesting them. So I'd just be swimming around in this space of, I'm honestly trying to digest this, but I feel like I am getting knocked around inside of a pinball machine and I don't have any way to orient. I remembered pretty clearly, oh, right, part of what I know is going on here from a larger context is that I am forgetting the larger context. I am forgetting the way in which, at some point I'll have better language for this. The classical mystical stuff is all is one, excuse me, and all of creation is perfect. Even this suffering is perfect. And I think that language is horrid for it, but I now think I understand a lot better what that's talking about. And I've mentioned it in a bunch of the earlier videos in this series. But there's this there's a very clear movement. I've tried to demonstrate it a number of times you're just talking about this, trying to be clear about, oh, this move of I'm experiencing not just generic gratitude for experience, but I'm experiencing this. And I've so far been very able to bring this to most of the kinds of even the most meta conflict, the most metacognitive, oh, I feel bad. Oh, should I be feeling bad? No, I shouldn't. I've had all these insights. Am I losing the insights? Ah, I'm being terrible about this. Oh, and here I am beating myself up. Like it's like that whole storm is, it tends to just melt away when I look at it with the kind of amazement that I can experience that I can forget reality so deeply that I can actually get lost in that kind of metacognitive storm. And I think of this as bringing unconditional love or unconditional acceptance to my experience. I've sort of learned better how to do that. It's kind of funny that unconditional love and acceptance can be something that can show up better over time. It's like it's one of those things that's just really befuddling to me. I observe it, and I can come up with stories as to how that works, but there's a very deep way where this is quite profound to me. So normally I can do moves like that. Normally, as in the last couple of weeks, it's been quite available to me. And it just wasn't here. I would try to bring that acceptance, and there'd just be this big, angry no. Like, okay. And it's something like an enormous amount of resistance in me to pushing the matter. And when I would go, okay, and I seem to have all this resistance to pushing, and I would look at that as this is amazing, I would actually lose some kind of inner traction on the feeling of actually enjoying the wonder of being able to be stuck that way. It was like the forgetting needed to include the degree to which I have remembered how forgetting works. And that was confusing. And from there, there's just this sense of, okay, I guess I just need to take time. I need to digest this. What eventually worked, I wrote this in the description for this year, was just talking to a friend and saying, hey, something's knotting me up. I don't even know how to speak cleanly about it. And I'm just hoping that you can help me untie some things. The first thing I did with him was describe the situation, well, trying in some vague sense to be energetically clean, but also recognizing I can't. I literally cannot. It's not an option. I can't even let the difficulty clear out the energetic dirt, the ways in which I was being victimized and blaming and um, and highlighting how unfair things are, and I just couldn't clean it out. There wasn't an option, so I just had to say it that way, and then say, and now I want to go back and highlight where the actual puzzle is. The puzzle is basically that I can't seem to clean out this being victimized energy. I can't reach it. It's like normally in my body, I can feel like I'm reaching down into my abdomen. And when there's something in there that needs to move, I can feel it, be in touch with it, bring a kind of acceptance to that, and it moves. And there's space, and there's ease, and there's openness, and it's just not available at any meta level that I could find. And to cut a very long story short, basically he just was with me and then said at some point, there's actually an off the cuff sort of comment that I still don't know why it had the effect it did on me, but in some sense, what he ended up communicating to me was something like, well, why don't you bring the acceptance to the resistance? Now, he didn't mean this as, have you tried this? It wasn't a quick suggestion like that. It was more like, I find myself wondering what bringing that kind of acceptance you've been talking about to this situation, like what that would be like for you. There's something about the quality of how he held all of that that somehow gave me room to do the move that I had thought of before, but I couldn't enact. And then all of a sudden I could. I started to tear up, and I could feel, in particular, the way in which I did not want to love the situation that I was reacting to. I did not want to accept it. Did not. Absolutely no. And how I was not accepting that refusal. That was the anger. That was the that was coming up. It's like, no, don't love this. Don't accept it. It's not okay to accept this. You got to like protect the thing. Um, and I kind of knew that, and I even consciously tried to use it. But somehow, for some reason, I needed Malcolm to be present with me and reflect back things I knew in order to create space for me to do the movement I had tried to do before, but I just couldn't. And then I could. And then I could bring that acceptance to the, I really don't want to do that. Yeah, that is so beautiful. And yeah, that pain matters. And being with that, I could feel, back in terms of IFS language, internal family systems, there's something like the protector sort of melted and then was off to the side. And then I could bring that same melting energy to the deeper structures. And it actually felt like my organs were relaxing. I had more room to breathe. I actually found myself kind of collapsing backwards from the sense of openness that became available. And I realized I had not been really breathing or relaxing or really feeling myself for a couple of days. I'm just baffled about why I contracted that way. I thought I was attending to opening, relaxing, and apparently there was something else going on. So a whole bunch of stuff came up from that. But what I found, and I still find very befuddling, is this thing of, one way to put it is, why did I need Malcolm? And in some sense, I imagine this sounds like a trivial question. Well, sometimes we need people. It's not that I object to needing people exactly. It's something more like um, there's there's something about there's something for me where, for the most part, my tendency is to distract myself from what's going on in myself by going out to other people. That's a big chunk of why I decided to start doing these live streams, was to practice being in touch with that, to practice um, uh, in some sense interacting, but interacting more from a place of, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm doing. And I imagine that this might generalize. Or here's what I experience when I look at another person. I imagine that they're going through that. Like trying to be a little more, not so much about being careful with the language and making sure I'm only talking about what I know. That's one way of putting it. And I tried to do that years ago, and it actually just created a lot of tension for me. But more making a practice of the opposite of self-abandonment, of really caring for myself, of really being attentive to my own experience and caring about it and for it. Taking that as a priority, as a foundation to stand on. And I noticed in this case that that just flat out was not an option. I could not be with my experience to the extent that it needed. It just could not happen. That's confusing. So generally when things feel like that, it's because I'm telling myself a story of how I have to have some kind of rescuing influence. I even had the signatures of being victimized here. And for all the sincerity that I was able to access, I couldn't get out of it alone. In other cases, I'm sort of stumbling around a little bit. I'm trying to make what I think is a very clean point. I think my mind's just melting because I'm starting this so late, and really hoped to take care of this hours earlier, but this just needed processing. Normally, when I have a thought like, I need someone to help me process this, there is some element to which I'm avoiding experiencing something in me. And often if I pay attention to that experience, there's kind of an unfolding that happens. In this case, it was exactly the opposite, that my attempt to take care of it myself was actually what was preventing me from processing it, and that I needed to let go and let others help me. There's a kind of puzzle here that I don't understand yet. And I'm saying this not to ask for help. I want to be clear about that. I'm not asking for advice per se. I'm just sharing of what's going on for me here. There's a puzzle about, on the inside, how can I tell? Mistakes here are actually pretty costly. They create loops that can literally last lifetimes. This is not a huge reason to contraction, getting tense about it, getting scared about it. That's not helpful. But there is something relevant going on here of how to cut through to the truth. Like on my own, before talking to Malcolm, some of the biggest progress I could make was remembering, oh, right, it's not about a strategy, it's about grounding in truth. What's true? And that helped to create a little bit of space, but not enough to, for lack of a better term, not enough to avoid creating karma. Because you're just stuck with, I have too much karma to not create karma. How do I get out of that? Oh, apparently that's not going to work. Okay, well, here I go. Yeah, so I feel like there's something here about, I feel some nervousness about even talking about this because there's a dimension where I experience a lot of people as feeling like they have a very clear answer, which amounts to being rescuers in the victim triangle. Oh, sometimes people just need help. Kind of. But almost every time I feel anybody coming in with that kind of energy, there is a kind of infantilization that's going on. And it actually systematically makes the situation worse. So I don't trust that answer. Not just intellectually, but like somatically. There's something of like, where's that answer coming from? What's going on there? Right? There's a deep question, which is, well, clearly sometimes I need help. And I don't understand how that can possibly work. I don't understand how that's at all possible. It seems to me that it's got to be, well, I do have some images, but it's something like, where is the edge of forgetting? Is that is that like the edge of computability? Like it's something undeterminable? Maybe. I don't know. So I notice I feel a whole lot of confusion here about, well, what does it mean to develop a really good uh, toolkit for moving emotions? I have a very powerful toolkit, and I still run into limitations here. I can even tell in talking about this that I am not being clear right now. There's a way where if I were resonating with the underlying clarity of this, that there would be a very clear thing coming through. And right now I'm kind of stumbling around and talking about I'm confused here, I'm confused here. So I don't want to keep practicing that, so I'm going to close this in a moment. Yeah, I think I'll just leave this here.